Welcome everybody. Today we're going to cover shift tactics 3 and 4. 3 is going to be about leverage, and we're going to go through that probably relatively fast. And fast in my world could mean who knows. But I'm going to try and keep that one about 30 minutes. We'll take probably a 10-minute break, and then we'll get into chapter 4, which is all about lead generation, because lead generation tactics change during a shifted market. So for those that don't know me, my name is John Newman. I'm team leader of the Crofton-Fort Meade Market Center, and I don't know, rainmaker, I guess is what we call me, for the Newman Real Estate Group. So I've been in real estate since, I started real estate in 2007. February of 2007 was when I got my real estate license. So for those of you that are a little bit more seasoned, Adam, I'm looking at you, buddy. How are you? So what happened like 2007, 2008?
Things went well.
Yeah, until they didn't anymore. So yeah, I got started in real estate February 2007, and it was an interesting time because I had never known what a shifted market was. Now, just to set things straight, oh, I forgot my crystal ball. Just from my perspective, I don't anticipate anything close to what happened in 2007, 2000 through 2010. Completely different set of circumstances. And for those of you that were not in the business, here's how easy it was to buy a house in 2005. You have phone, you can make phone call, you can get approved for a mortgage. It was literally that easy. I remember I bought a condo in Ocean City in 2005. I called up my loan officer and I said, listen, I'm thinking about buying a condo in Ocean City. And his exact response was, how much do you need? That was it. It was just, how much do you need? No income, no documentation, no nothing. You can buy a house. It was awesome because every buyer was pre-approved.
John, we used to say, I was working in construction and development, that you would ask folks, do you want fries with that house? You just drive in, here's your house, you got financing, state your income, state your assets.
Yep, that's how easy it was. So things have changed since then, and that's why I think for the benefit of everybody, we don't have like no income, no documentation, negative amortization loans. Like that was interesting. Like you can get a loan and literally pay less. It was called a pick a payment loan. You could literally pick your monthly payment. So every month that you had the loan, you would go in the hole. You would go negative. It was an amazing time. We also had the demand from buyers obviously was strong because everybody could qualify for a house. So, you'd have clients, Adam, you might remember this. I don't want to just buy one house. I want to buy 5 houses because I'm going to buy it and then it's going to go up by 50% and I'll just sell it next year. So that was a whole thing. Like people would buy houses in brand new subdivisions, and then by the time the builder was finished the subdivision, they would then sell the house and make money. So anyway, we're not getting into that again. I think we learned our lesson last time. However, markets always shift. So a shift is not a bad thing or a good thing. It's just markets always shift. Typically in this area or nationally, it's about every, let's say 8 to 12 years, you go through some sort of like shifted market. And we're about, in essence, let's say it's 2009 was the bottom, 2010, we're probably about right on pace for something to happen. So what we are seeing this time that's a little bit different is it's probably not going to be a supply issue. Like we're not going to see a lot of houses come on the market. It's probably more of a demand issue. As interest rates rise, the demand for houses may start to slow down a little bit. And then you'll start seeing things like coming back called ARMs. Like you may be getting emails or hearing from loan officers now about adjustable rate mortgages. They'll come back. So, all right, so shift tactic number 3 is about leverage. And before we dive into this, don't think of leverage from the standpoint of I necessarily have to hire people. Because whether you have a team, like most people hear the word leverage and they immediately think, well, I don't have a team, so I don't have leverage. Eric, do you have leverage in your life? Give me an example of leverage that you have.
Like in real estate or just?
Just in general.
I use technology for things.
Okay, systems can be a form of leverage, and we're going to cover that. What else, Matt? Do you cut your own hair?
It might look like it, but no.
Okay, so that's leverage, right? I mean, you're utilizing a system or a person to do something. Why don't you cut your own hair?
Because I fuck it up.
It's all right.
I messed it up.
It's all right. Yeah. So, anybody else? What leverage do we use?
Children.
Your children.
Absolutely.
Maybe cut grass. Maybe do things around the house.
Dishes, mop the floors, scrub baseboards, wash cars, go to the grocery store.
So we all, in some way, shape, or form, utilize leverage. Why is leverage important? Because we're going to cover this, but just give me whatever your thoughts are. Why is leverage actually important?
Saves you time.
Saves you time. And what does saving us time allow us to do?
Use our time more effectively in other places, probably.
Yep. Everybody has, like, we have a finite supply of time. So how we use our time is going to determine a lot of what our outcomes are in life. So, all right, let's dive in. If you have any, I want to keep this just very, very small audience. If you don't choose to participate, I will call on you. So I'll call you out. I have no problem with that. You can stop at any point in time. Like, there's no such thing as a bad question. The only bad question is one that wasn't asked. Because if you're thinking it, somebody else is probably thinking as well. So feel free to share. So some of the main topics, perspective on effective people leverage. How do you acquire leverage? And some of this, like I said, we'll talk from the standpoint of I'm hiring people. I do not necessarily want you to think about hiring people, just how are you utilizing leverage? Take stock of the leverage we have right now, focus on doing the right things, which equates to the bottom line, which equates to your action plan. So, Eric, you mentioned this. Leverage can come in multiple different ways. It can be people, it can be systems, or tools. Adam, have you ever done something around the house and you realized you had the wrong tool? And had you had the right tool, how much easier your life would have been?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, ever use an axe? Anybody here ever use an axe on a piece of wood? Completely different than using a chainsaw. Now, I bought a new house like 2 years ago, and we have these big logs, and I built this fire pit, and I went out and bought myself an axe because I was too cheap to buy a chainsaw. I hit this piece of wood one time, and every bone in my body hurt. And I said, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not 18 years old. I have nothing to prove. And I went out and bought a chainsaw, and guess what? Things happened much easier. So I spent money, which then saved me time. And that axe is, funny enough, that axe is still sitting in that piece of wood. I can't get it out, or that log. So tools can be forms of leverage. Technology. I believe that real estate today is 20,000 times easier than when it was in 2007. Because we have tools now that provide us leverage that we didn't have back then. We didn't have things like command. Matter of fact, I think in 2007 we probably had flip phones, didn't we, Adam?
Yeah, when I first started selling real estate, contracts were handwritten.
Okay, and that took long. Sometimes we didn't even had to hand deliver them to people. Or we had fax machines. Like everything, we have more tools. We didn't have social media.
And we used to have to white stuff out.
Yeah, we had whiteout. Yeah, we had whiteout. Yeah. Social media, you can do business now 24 hours a day. Matter of fact, I was up till about 3:30 in the morning talking to people from all over the world on Discord channels at 3:30 in the morning. Because in Japan, 3:30, I found out last night, 3:30 in the morning is 3:30 in the afternoon in Japan. In Europe, it's like in the middle of the day or something like that, or the day before. But anyway, we have the ability now that we can lead generate 24 hours a day if we choose to. We didn't have that in 2007. Adam, how did we lead generate in 2007?
We used to door knock, door to door, do a lot of mailers. social media was around this. We did a lot of signs, billboards.
Yep. And then ultimately, we had to either pick up the phone or get belly to belly with somebody. There's no like text messaging. There's no like chat. There's no.
Let's do a lot of cold calls.
Yeah. Yeah. So now we have leverage. We have tools and systems that are available to us today. There was no MLS back then. No, there was an MLS. There was no Zillow, no Trulia, no Redfin. We had to pay for our first website. My first website, I think I spent like $3,500 on my first website. Out of my pocket. You all get it for free now. So, people, systems, tools. High achievers understand this, and they understand where to use them effectively. So how do you know when it's time to add people leverage? Yeah. When you can't build a system or a tool around it. When you start adding people. But first you try and max out the systems and the tools because people are more expensive typically than systems or tools. And the easy way that you'll understand this is, it's not easy, it's simple but not easy, is to literally, like, you write down your day. Like, what am I doing all day? And some of you have heard me tell this story before. I keep a to-do list, and I keep a list of things I never want to ever do this again list. And the things that I don't enjoy or don't give me energy or produce massive amounts of revenue are the things I try and outsource and use leverage. Create a system, get a tool, or add a person to it. All right, now this one should be very, very easy, and I hope we get 100% participation, and I hope there's only one right answer here. All the things that we do in real estate, what's the one thing that's most dollar productive? Deals. Okay, so how do we get deals?
Lead gen.
Yeah. Let's break down lead gen, because in some people those two words are dirty words. It's just communicating with people. That is lead generation, communicating with people. Two-way communication. Don't overcomplicate it. It doesn't have to be a bad word. It's just talking to people. It's the highest dollar productive activity that we can do. That leads to conversations, lead to relationships, which leads to appointments, which leads to contracts, which leads to closings. Now, the other way that we look at things is what things, and I'll relate to my things I never want to do list, what brings us joy? So what are the things that we do that bring us energy, passion, enjoyment? I equate those two things equally. So what I mean by that is, let's say that my hourly rate, everybody has an hourly rate, or you should be thinking in terms of an hourly rate, but let's just say that mine is $250 an hour. There are activities that I can do that will generate $250 an hour. Then there are things that I love doing. Fishing. I love to fish. Don't spend as much time fishing as I probably should, but I love to fish. Fishing to me is worth $250 an hour because I love to do it. Raking leaves brings me no enjoyment, and I don't earn $250 an hour by raking leaves. So those are the things that I look to outsource. If I could pay somebody $15 an hour, or pay my kids are even more expensive. If I could pay somebody $15 an hour to rake leaves, then I have two options. I can do something that generates me $250 an hour, or I can do something I enjoy, which I equate to $250 an hour. My ideal day is spent in one of those two boxes. Either I'm doing something that gives me $250 an hour, or I'm doing something that I absolutely love doing. That's my idea of a perfect day, is I'm only spending time in those two spaces. So when I keep a list of things that I never want to do again, it's all of these other things that either A, don't bring me energy or enthusiasm I'm not passionate about, or B, don't pay me $250 an hour, if that's my hourly rate. Any questions on that? 'Cause that's a little bit different way of thinking for most people. Like, I could change my oil. I understand how to do it. I could watch a YouTube video, learn how to change my oil, but it doesn't bring me energy or passion or enthusiasm, and it's certainly not worth $250 an hour to do it. So those are the things that I look to outsource. Now, where you can fall into a trap is if I try and outsource everything and don't spend time doing the things that make me the $250 an hour. See, that's the gap. You can't just say, oh, I'm just going to have everybody do everything, and then I'm going to go play all day. Unless you have enough passive income, and that's another class that I'll get into a whole other time. But any questions on that? Are we sure? Because this usually brings up questions. And now everybody's quiet.
How do you calculate your dollar per hour in the beginning? Do you just guess or use like somebody else's
Set a goal.
numbers? Set a goal.
Yeah, set a goal. I want to make $100,000 a year. There's about 2,052 hours. I think it's 2,052 work hours in a year. So in order for you to make $100,000 a year, you'd have to make about $50 an hour.
Be honest with yourself on how much you actually work.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things.
Yeah.
As far as figuring out my rate, we had this conversation with you, Whitney, at our last touch base. Is okay, am I really going to be honest about how many hours you work? And then also be honest with yourself about how much time you take off. So for me, I'm typically taking off 3 to 4 weeks a month. Well, excuse me, 3 to 4.
What is that hourly rate?
3 to 4 weeks per year. So, I do a lot of traveling. So if you look at that, and then you figure out what your hourly is, and then figure out, well, are you making, is your hourly enough?
Yeah. And the other thing is be honest with yourself. So when I first got into real estate, and some of you have heard this story, I quickly realized that the simple hack to this business was I would just outwork people. Because, don't take this the wrong way, but I believe most real estate agents are lazy. Not lazy as in they're not like lazy, like they sit around and do nothing. I believe that they put in 4 to 6 hours a day. And if I just put in 12 hours a day or 15 hours a day, I think Kobe Bryant talked about this. I would get 3 times the amount of stuff done in one day than the average person would get done. So it was not uncommon for me to be in the office usually around 7:30 or 8 and be in the office until 1 or 2 in the morning. Now back then, what was I doing? Like emails or marketing stuff or building a blog site or something like that. But it was not uncommon for me to be in the office until 1 o'clock in the morning. And my wife came back to me one time and she was like, all right, what's going on? She was like, what's her name? Like something like there's no real estate agents are in the office till 1 o'clock in the morning. I know people that are in real estate and they're not in the office till 1 o'clock in the morning, so what's up? And I said, here's all the emails that I'm sending because we didn't have text messages, we didn't have social media. Here's my emails, you can look at it. And then she came back and she said, well, what exactly are you doing then? Because something's not working because you're spending all these hours and I don't see any checks coming in. So I had to look at myself and say, was I actually doing the most productive things until 1 o'clock in the morning? Now, I'm not a big believer in this whole work smarter thing. I think you work harder to then earn the right to work smarter. I think some people try and just shortcut things. Oh, I'm just going to work smarter than everybody else. Yeah, I think you work your butt off first, and then you figure out how to do that. I don't think there's shortcuts. But what I did realize is that I was spending a lot of time doing things that didn't make that big of a difference. I'm designing a new flyer. I'm designing a business card, or is this font the right way? Or I'm working on my bio, or just crazy stuff. And what I should have been doing is spending more time lead generating. So if I really analyze my day, I wasn't spending 12 hours a day lead generating. And if I was spending 12 hours a day lead generating, then I would have had those checks that my wife said that I didn't make. So be honest, where are you spending your time? And I'm also known to talk, so a 5-minute question might turn into a 50-minute conversation about life in the cosmos, and maybe I shouldn't have been doing as much of that. All right, so, and we're just getting our perspectives on just right now on leverage. So there's this whole mantra, like I do it, then we do it together, then they do it. So anytime you want to, things that you don't understand or don't, like I can't do that with cutting my hair. I've never cut my own hair, so there's no I do it, then we're going to do it together, and then they're going to do it. But if I wanted to hire somebody in a skill set, like if I wanted to train an agent, okay, I know how to do it, then we're going to do it together, and then I'm going to hire somebody else to do it. I've seen a lot of teams make mistakes, and they want to outsource things that they don't even understand how to do. They've never done it. Here's where I see the biggest mistake, ISAs. I'm just going to outsource this ISA job to somebody else, because I don't want to do it. But they've never done it themselves. So they have no idea whether the person is good, bad, effective, ineffective at doing their job, because they've never done it themselves. So when I was flipping houses, I didn't have this knowledge, but I tend to like efficiencies and things. So when we were flipping houses, I got my hands dirty. So I would get in there with the guys, and I would install the siding. I would install the hardwood floors. I would install the things because I wanted to figure out how fast can I do it. And then now I can tell you what I should be paying you, because if I can get 100 square feet of flooring done in an hour and a half, then there's no reason that you can't do it, because you should be better than me at it. So be careful of outsourcing something that you have no knowledge of. I had a friend that went to the Naval Academy, and then he launched a cybersecurity business. And this was about 15 years ago, actually. So it may not have been called cybersecurity back then. And he had all of these DoD contracts. And I'm like, what do you know about cybersecurity? He was like, I don't really know anything, but I know a lot more than these 60-year-old generals. He said, this is the best gig in the world, because they're signing over $10 million contracts, and they have no idea what we do. So they don't know if we're doing it right or wrong. He ended up selling that company for a lot of money. So just be careful of outsourcing something that you have absolutely no knowledge or understanding of. All right. Who's on your team? This is a good one. Some of you in here have teams. Some of you might be on a team. Some of you might be single agents, but who's on your team? Wow, I skipped around a lot of it.
I got you.
It's not me, I swear. So who's on your team? Spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, are they a part of your team? One of the worst things that I did as a newer agent was not making that spouse a part of my team. Because that led to conflict. Because I didn't include them as being part of my team. So who else on it? Loan officer, title company, home inspector. Anybody worked with a bad home inspector? So what's the cost of working with a bad home inspector? Yeah, it's the cost of a bad hire. When we take the class career visioning, we talk about the cost of a bad hire. Well, the cost of hiring a bad home inspector is a deal killer. And what does that do to our hourly rate if we have to start all over the process all over again? Yeah. So choose your team wisely. What's the cost of, I know we don't have any in the office, but what's the cost of hiring a bad loan officer? You could lose a deal, you could lose a client.
Lose referrals.
You could lose referrals.
So it's not just the business in front of you, it's potential business.
Darn right. What's the cost of hiring a bad hair cutter? 2 weeks. Well, if you're a male, 2 weeks, about 2 weeks, yeah. It might be a little bit different if you're a female. Like that could be like costly. My wife went to some place one time, was going to get her hair dyed blonde, and it came out like green. Like, yeah, and it was expensive. It wasn't green, greenish. Like,
It's almost worse.
it was bad. Yeah, so everybody that's on our team, we need to choose wisely. What's the cost of hiring a bad spouse? Like that could be costly. That could be a lot of money. So choose your team wisely. And there's a process by which, how do you evaluate? Sometimes we just pick somebody instead of going through a process of actually, does this person fit with me? And there's a process to that. And that, matter of fact, it's next week, career visioning. Career visioning isn't just about like, oh, I need to build a team. It's about how do you hire people effectively for any aspect of your life. Bad contractors. Anybody here had a client that hired a bad contractor? Like maybe they should go to career visioning.
I had a client that instead of hiring a contractor, he hired himself while using a circular saw to go through something that slipped. It went right, he ended up like reconstructing surgery, everything. And because of that, that slowed down our processes. Because he had to go to the hospital and rehab and everything else. My response was, why don't you just hire a contractor?
Yeah. Well, because they don't understand the power of leverage. Like they just don't understand the power of leverage. I think some people take a certain degree of pride. I can do it all myself. I'm not going to pay somebody to do that. I can do it all. I'm over that. Like, I don't have anything to prove to people by I can rebuild my own engine. Doesn't bring me enjoyment. I'll probably screw it up. It'll probably cost me money in the long run. Like, I don't need to feel like I can do it all myself. Your allied resources, how many of you get referrals, and I know the answer to this, from loan officers or home inspectors or people that we refer business to, are they giving us back business? Most of us, the answer is not as much as we give them. That's how most agents feel. Like, we don't get in return as much as we give out. So maybe it's reevaluating that relationship and setting the expectation. When you're choosing your team, what are the expectations that you're setting? All right, so what can you leverage out? Pretty much anything that doesn't pay you. The average real estate agent, if you're spending time lead generating, meeting with clients, talking to clients, lunches with clients, coffees with clients, whatever you're doing with clients or prospective clients, it's probably about $250 an hour. That's probably about what your hourly rate is for doing those activities. So what do you leverage out? Everything other than that, as much as possible. Like everything. Like if you're making a flyer or you're designing something or something like that, like Fiverr, ABBA, like there's all kinds of ways. We have built-in leverage inside the market center to utilize it. We start getting in our head, oh, but I don't have $20 or $30 or $50 or $100 to do that, because we have a scarcity mindset. If you knew that every time I go to a lunch with a friend, client, whatever, it's going to equate to a referral or possibly a piece of business, how many of you would go out to lunch every single day? You would never feel like I don't have $100 to pay someone to do blah, 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 because you would quickly see that I'm making a lot of money by just going out to lunch every day or coffee or something like that.
So how do you,
Go ahead.
I would say, how do you know when a leverage point is becoming an asset and not a liability? So how do you know when that money that you're spending, because obviously if you're going to those lunches and they're not producing referrals or things like that, like at what point are you like, this is no longer actually worth the leverage that I've essentially overextended?
You just track it. So I spent $200 or $2,000 on lunches, whatever it is. Did I get any business from that? And the answer is yes or no. It's just a red light, green light. Now then, you have to ask yourself, like, are you asking the right questions while you're at lunch? So there's some skill set in there as well, but you just track it. You track all of your activities. Wherever you spend money, track it. Is there a return on investment from spending that money? And if the answer is yes, it's go. If the answer is no, it's stop.
Is there a percentage that you would consider a good return, or is it just like if you break even on it, it's considered?
Oh no, you don't want to break. Well, you know the answer to that.
Well, that's
If I give you, hey, I need to borrow $1,000. I'm gonna give you $1,000 back. Like no. Most people say anywhere between like 3 to 6%. If I spend $1,000, I want to make $3,000 to $6,000. So I mean that's a benefit of this business, or any business, is that you get a high return on your investment. If you're getting like a 10% return on investment, hell, just put your money in the stock market and do nothing. Just let it sit there. Like if you're making an active investment, then you're going to want a higher rate of return. But good question. You have to track it.
Be purposeful about the time that you're getting, because you're supposed to be getting time back, right, when you're leveraging out.
Yeah.
The time that you get back, you want to make sure you're making money off of that time.
Yeah.
Whether it's, going to lunches or networking events or appointments. Because really, there's 5 things you're supposed to be doing with your time, right?
Every single day.
Yeah.
And early on in my career, somehow I was doing all these other things instead of those 5 things, which is why Nicole was like, how come there's no money coming in? Now, what leverage will also show you is leverage will expose your systems. So what I mean by that, sometimes, and I see this happen mainly with teams, we want to make a hire for somebody to do something, and we have no idea exactly what they're going to do. So then we end up spending a lot of time, and they're like, oh, this person's a bad hire. It's really not. We have a really bad systems in place to let them know what they need to do. A system should be, by the way, when you have a bulletproof system, here's the way that you should think about it. Can a 15-year-old understand how to do this? Is it so specific that you could hand it over to a 15-year-old, and with no knowledge about the industry, they will know exactly how to complete the task? And if the answer is yes, then you probably have a really, really good system. If the answer is no, then you probably do not have a great system. That's just the way that I look at it. It needs to be very, 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 very specific. And the reason it needs to be specific is sometimes the way that we think about things or say things and the way that somebody else internalizes that or hears it are 2 completely different things. And I'll give you a story of what I mean by that. We had a situation years ago where we had a staff member came to me and said, I cannot get all of these other things done because I'm spending too much time answering the phones. So what I said to them was, well, then stop answering the phones. Now, in my head, what did I say to them?
Get the rest of your stuff.
In your head, you should prioritize stuff you need to do and not answer the phone. You didn't actually mean don't answer the phone.
In my head, I meant prioritize. That's exactly what I meant in my head. Prioritize your time so that you're not just sitting by the phone all day. What this person heard me say was, stop answering the phones. So after 5 days, I started getting all these complaints. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And agents were saying, nobody can get a hold of anybody because nobody's answering the phones. So I went to this person and I said, what in the world's going on? And they said, you told me not to answer the phones. And I said, well, do you really think I meant that? Well, that's what you said. So I realized in that moment, oh my gosh. Like the words, just because I think something, so their next job description was very specific. It was, you're to answer the phones from this time to this time, then put the phone on voice message, and then check the voice messages between this time, and then turn them back off again. Now, I didn't feel like I needed to be that detailed, but trust me, it made a difference. So, and I'll give you another funny story. Some people think literally, so what you say is what it is. Some people think outside the box. People think, like I use a lot of stories, so sometimes people have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. But my wife is a literal thinker. So she was making dinner one night, and she doesn't enjoy cooking, which is great. That's not a problem. I love to cook, so works out well. But this one day she said that she was going to make dinner, and I'm like, okay, awesome. And I come home, and I'm expecting whatever it was. I don't remember what it was, but whatever. I'm like, this is going to be exciting. I'm going to come home, dinner's been made, da-da-da. And I'm like, I walk in the house, and there's no dinner. I'm like, what happened? She said, we didn't have garlic salt. And I'm like, okay. Well, the recipe called for garlic salt. I said, did we have garlic? Yep. Did we have salt? Yep. But we didn't have garlic salt, so she did not make anything because we did not have the tools that it took to complete the job. So she just thinks literally. She's not good at winging things. She likes, just because of her personality type, she wants to be very specific about what the task is, and she wants to know that she did it correctly. So if there's something missing from the recipe, she doesn't improvise. Like, it's not the way that she thinks. I improvise everything. That's probably why we've been married for so long. We're polar opposites. Right now, where do you find people that you can leverage? There's one really answer for this. Kids. If you have kids. If you don't have kids, borrow somebody else's kids. Like my daughter right now is building out a Discord channel that we're going to be using for real estate. She likes Discord. She understands Discord. So guess what? I'm going to give her money anyway, because that's what I do with my kids. Well, now I'm making them earn the money. So now I'll exchange your prom dress for a Discord server.
And there's a tax benefit to that.
And there is a tax benefit to that, a huge tax benefit.
Now, if you don't understand Discord, how do you go about setting her expectations of what is considered work?
Great question. That's a great question. Like, that's such a good question. I found a model and said, replicate this. So I found another Discord server that I liked, and I said, literally copy and paste this. And then I will make some minor tweaks. So if I don't understand something like that, my first things will be, who else did understand it? What's the model that I can rip off and duplicate? Really good question. Virtual assistants, we have them. A lot of virtual assistants here in the office. So now here's what I would tell you about virtual assistants, where I see people make mistakes. Let's say you go at the benefit of ABR, they're already trained. They already know what they're doing. Now, if you go out and you all will get emails from people saying, hey, by the way, if you want someone that will do prospecting, this, hire a VA. And we think that these people are like fully trained like we are. They are not. And I see so many people, especially on the lead generation side, they try and utilize a VA to make my cold calls, to do the ISA work. And if they were that amazing at it, they wouldn't be working for $6 an hour. They'd be like, dude, I can make $2.50 an hour. So once again, be careful of what people advertise they say that they can do. What I will say about VAs is they will expose your systems. Like, they will expose you if you want to hire a VA for somebody. or for anything real estate related, they will expose your systems because they're not right next to you, right down the hall. You can't just say, oh my gosh, I forgot about can you help me with this? Like, it doesn't work that way. So you have to have an amazing system in place so that you can, most VAs, not all of them, but a lot of VAs are in other countries. And you have to have communication down pat, your system down pat, everything built for a 16-year-old to know how they do their job. How do you track them to make sure that, like, you know, our VAs in the Philippines. How do I know if you're even working? So we have to have great systems in place to be able to monitor what they're doing. This is very, 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 very important. Anytime you want to utilize leverage, expectations and standards. Matter of fact, I think they should do career visioning and call it like marriage prep. Because everything in career visioning, I think, would help people. I think literally if you had to go through like a marriage prep course, it would cut the divorce rate in half, because expectations, standards, how do you know if you're hiring the right person? A lot of it's just life skills of how to bring other people into your life. But my biggest mistakes that I've made in bringing on leverage is a failure of setting expectations and standards. And when you do that up front, everyone knows what they're getting into. They understand the arrangement. They understand how you win, how you lose. They understand the job description. What are they being hired for? And how detailed is it? The more time you spend doing that up front, the less time you're going to be spent trying to unwind that situation. And then it becomes very, very simple. Are they meeting or exceeding the standards and the expectations? It's pretty black and white. But when you're not clear on that, here's what happens. You make a hire, you then fall in love with the person, because most people in real estate like people. That's why we got into the business. We don't like to fire people because that's kind of sucks, actually. So we get into a relationship, we make a hire, we haven't set clear expectations or anything about what they're supposed to be doing, and then we're in this weird situation where it's like, yeah, but now we're friends. I don't want to fire my friend, and it's like, well, you didn't really tell me what I'm supposed to be doing, so how can I fire you? Because I don't even know what you were supposed to be doing. So I really have no grounds to fire you. Gets really, really awkward. So do your homework up front. Follow the career visioning process. And once again, this isn't just for like if you're building a team or building a business. This is just in all aspects of life. Career visioning teaches you how to utilize leverage and attract and find quality people for whatever you want to do. And the best thing is, you want to hire people that are the same as you. Smart, quick, intelligent, attractive to clients and others, motivated, ethical. To take it a step further, and when you go to hire people, no matter what you want to do, you have to define who you are first, what your values are, what you're willing to accept, what you're not willing to accept. For a long time, and for those that have worked with me know that, like, I'm a fan of Jesus Christ. Like, that's my guy. But I wouldn't talk about that because I was like, oh, you're not supposed to talk about things like that. Now I bring it up right away. Like, usually, like, as we get in the second interview, here's what my core values. Work ethic, learning based. I'm a fan of Jesus Christ. If you're going to be offended when I say that word, then I'm just letting you know up front that I'm going to use words like that. So I want to make sure that we're still okay. When you don't do those things up front, your core values, then you could be in a disconnect with somebody. And it may not be, you may vibe from a business standpoint, but personally you may not get along. And that's actually even worse. Because now you're like, this person's doing their job, but I can't stand being around them. So you want to work with people that meet your values. But you have to define that yourself. What are you willing to accept and what are you not willing to accept? This is important here. So every one of us are the CEOs. Whether I don't care whether you run a team or whatever. You're the CEO of You Inc. So You Inc. is your business, your enterprise, You Inc. You are the CEO. And you should treat it as such. You don't have to be running a team to be thinking like a CEO. You should think like a CEO even if you're a single agent, because then it's going to force you to think and analyze and evaluate people. All right, do you have the right people? So these are just, you will have your, these are kind of like samples. Do you have the right people on your team? You have to define your own values. These are a couple ones. For me, learning base is really, really important. Like, I love to teach. I learn something new every single day. I have a thirst for learning. And if I feel that way and people that I'm working with don't feel that way, it causes a disconnect. Coachable, like that's big to me. Is somebody coachable? Do you think you know everything? Because I know that I don't know everything.
And see, that's not to say that you shouldn't hire people smarter than you.
Oh, you definitely should.
You know, you want somebody smarter than you, but still not I think I know everything.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, also, is vulnerability. Because one of the things I'll be is vulnerable. You know,
Yeah.
Just because you're a team leader or you're on the LLC doesn't mean that your real estate transactions are any less of a nightmare than anybody else's. So I think being willing to share that, being willing to share in some of your defeats that you're still going to have is important as well.
I think it's huge. That vulnerability and transparency, that shows that you're real. And like most of the people that I work with, like they know all the skeletons in my closet, and they open up to me about things that creates a relationship. But if they feel that I'm just like some king on top of a whatever castle, like then it doesn't build a relationship. So you should evaluate the people that you have from your own goals, from your own vision, from your own standards that you have. And then you just go through the process of, say, erase and replace. Not to erase people, but you understand what I'm saying. Like, you're always seeking to top grade the people that you have inside You Inc. Until you get married, then you're stuck. A behavioral fit, and this is why career visioning and things like the KPA are important. So I'll tell you about another hire that I had. And by the way, so just to what Adam said, vulnerability, not including the people that we have on the team now, 73 people, 73 or 75 in 10 years. So I've failed 73 or 75 times of hiring people. And I'll fail another 100, 200, 300, 1,000 times going forward because it's, I think around 18.
How many did you used to have?
I've had as many as 28 and as little as 1.
You're doing more now with less, essentially, because you're the right.
Yeah, because a lot of the people now on the team are 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8 are operational or administrative type people now. So still not that many agents. But yeah, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably like 9 admin people I've turned over. And I don't look at it that it's their fault. I take extreme accountability. It's always my fault. I hired them. So I failed in some way. It wasn't them. They weren't a bad person or a bad agent. I was a bad boss because I failed in some way, shape, or form to either set expectations. I made the decision to bring them on. And I hear this with real estate teams a lot. Oh, agents don't want to work hard, or they didn't do this, or they didn't do that. Well, you put them on your team, so it's your fault. It's not their fault, it's your fault. You hired them, or you failed to give them the tools and resources they need to become successful. So that's why we go through this process now. And this process is just meant to identify certain core things. One of the hires that we had, we wanted our transaction manager to be very, very vocal. Conversations, not just sending emails back and forth. And come to find out that this person, their personality profile says that they don't want to talk to people. So they're a bad match. Doesn't mean they're a bad transaction coordinator. It means they're a bad transaction coordinator for the way that we wanted transactions to be coordinated. So now they're doing very, very well as a transaction coordinator for another team that had a different way that they wanted to conduct business. So when you define, and Carmen, you and I went through this, people will say, I want to hire an admin. What does that even mean? If I ask every one of you what the definition for an admin is, you're going to give me 10 different answers. I want an agent on my team. What does that mean? What is their role? What are they doing? How detailed have we become about what their roles and responsibilities and the standards are? Some people say admin, they think transaction coordinator. Some people say admin, they think personal assistant. Some people say admin, they mean database manager. Some people want a combination of all those different things, which is probably not going to work out too well because that's a lot of different behavioral profiles. So you have to be very, very clear on what you're looking to hire. Ooh, this is true. This goes back to like most of us like people. So we hire employees too quickly, hold on to them way too long when things aren't working out. And that's because we get into a relationship with them. So now when we bring on agents, this sounds horrible, but the job is to get them to quit within the first 30 days. Because after 30 days, I'm going to get to like you. So now it's designed to get them to, doesn't mean they won't be a successful agent. It just means that the way that we want to do things, they're either going to select in or select out. All right, once again, doing the right things. We all know what the right things are to do. So if you want to audit yourself, last time we talked about doing we were talking about budgeting and auditing your personal finances. So you'd print out, 90 days of bank statements, and you'd just go through with a highlighter and say, okay, do I need it? Can I cut it? Do I need it? Can I cut it? This is about auditing your time. So if you want to be completely transparent, literally pick somebody in this room and say, I want you to follow me for a day, and I want you to write down where I spend all of my time. Just like what will happen when you print out 3 months of bank statements, you're going to be like, holy crap, I didn't realize Chick-fil-A, which funny enough, you were here for the Chick-fil-A thing last week. My son wants to work at Chick-fil-A too now. I have a whole family that wants to, but what we found out is that Chick-fil-A gives scholarships for college, like big scholarships for college. Oh yeah. Up to like 30 grand. So I'm like, yeah, you're going to Chick-fil-A. You have to work there, but you earn money, you get Sundays off. I mean, you get all you can eat Chick-fil-A sauce. Yeah. So if you want to take a deep accountability of your time, just like you would your money, have someone follow someone. And trust me, someone will gladly volunteer to do this because they will want to. Oh, I would love to follow you around all day and just show you all the shit that you do that's not working out. But so it'd be easy to find someone to do it, and they just follow you around all day, and they write down, where did you spend your time? Where did you spend it? And you will find out how much time you actually waste. It's a lot, trust me.
I also heard you can set your timer like every 15 minutes.
Yep.
And then write down what you did in the previous 15 minutes. That's what that says anyway.
And that works.
I think it would take up a lot of time.
Here's the only downside of that. I tried it, and guess what? Yes. We make stuff up in our own heads. Well, that was really lead generation. Yeah, that was kind of lead generation. So I'll just put it down as lead generation. When you have somebody following you around, they're going to call you out on our own BS. Let's go. Training contribute to the right things. Well, systems, how do you get the job done? Tools, what do you use to get the job done? So a system is kind of like a framework, a process. Here's the system. The tools are what pieces do I need to complete this activity. This is 80-20 principle. Everybody understand 80-20 principle? 80% of our results come from 20% of our activities. So not everything that we do actually matters. In this business, once again, it comes back to conversations with people, which I will say instead of lead generation. The more conversations we'll have with people, the more business we will do. Period. End of story. Anybody can argue with it. Whoever talks to the most people in a day, I guarantee you will make the most money. I don't even care what they say. If they just put in the at-bats, if they get more at-bats than you do, they will produce more business than you will. All right, now lead generation. So we're going to dive into this, but here's why this is going to be so important. So just walk away with this one thing. The reason lead generation is so important during a shifted market is you will see a higher degree of fallout. So if you needed to have 2 pendings a month to hit your goals, you're going to need to ramp that up. I would say at least double it. Then you'll be safe. Because in December, January of last year, or December, November of last year, if you took a listing, how long was it before you got paid?
When? December of last year?
Yeah, if you took a listing in November of last year, put it on the MLS, how long was it before you got paid?
Before Christmas.
Yeah, right away. Now, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they said they've had one listing that's fallen through 3 times already.
The listing has been on the market since February 19th because it's fallen through.
So if you are,
Getting contracts.
yeah, okay. So if your mindset is, I get a listing, I get paid in 45 days, and the market shifts, and you're betting on that income, and then that thing falls apart, now what happens to your, how are you paying your bills that month?
Well, yeah, especially if you look at kind of right now, somebody that was under contract 30 to 45 days ago may have been under contract at a 4% interest rate of 3.75. Well, today, you have 800 credit, but you have 5. So the big difference is that is obviously affecting the market, it may affect even your price range because affordability has changed.
Yep. Buyers, we've been in a difficult time for buyers anyway. So imagine this scenario. Imagine inventory does not really pick up a whole lot, which would not surprise me. I don't think we're all of a sudden going to see 5,000 new houses come on the market. So imagine if the inventory still stays tight, but the buyers that you're writing contracts for are now falling apart. So not only did it take a long time to get them to find the house, but now they're falling apart for one reason or another. So if it...
Or just something's changing. Like one of the things we've done this week is go back to anybody that had a pre-approval more than 3 weeks old to get an updated pre-approval because that amount has changed.
If you're working with, we saw this happen last week. We represented the seller, another agent represented the buyer, obviously. And young couple wrote a contract literally 2 days into the contract after it was accepted. They needed out. Their parents told them it's not a good time to buy a house. So you're just going to start to see things like this. The headlines are going to start becoming more negative. Buyers will start getting squirrely. Oh my gosh, like everybody's telling me that now's not a good time to buy a house. What do I do? And you've been working with them for 6 months, and all of a sudden they're like, we're out. We just rented another place. So whatever your pipeline is, you better double it.
We're also seeing campfiring, where everyone who is a buyer who's been in the market for a while feels that it's still as competitive as it was, so they don't want to keep competing on a home with higher interest rates, where it's like no one else is competing either if you just submit the offer.
And here's yeah, I mean, sellers are going to start thinking, why didn't I have $20,000 above list price? What do you mean the buyers want to do a home inspection? What do you mean they're asking for closing help? Like nobody gives away closing help anymore. Matter of fact, our last 3 listings, every one of them got closing help. So in the last 7 days, every one of those listings buyers got closing help.
And also on the listing side, I think what we have to be somewhat cautious is people that are 2.99, 3.25, you're a potential seller. Well, now all of a sudden you're going to say, well, and I'll be very upfront. I had a long conversation with one of my lender partners on Monday morning, and they said they believe by the end of the summer, 800 credit will be getting a 7% interest rate. So why then would, and it's very deliberate, the federal government is trying to slow down the housing market. Their thought process is the housing market has really been in a boom for 5 to 7 years. So if they've been in a boom for 5 to 7 years, one of the more important things to them right now is controlling inflation, especially heading into a midterm election. So they'll do anything necessary right now to control inflation, even at the expense of the housing market. So when you kind of look at that, you say to yourself, well, that potential seller who may have, we talked about this, redid their house during COVID, they're very comfortable now, but they're sitting on a 2.9, 3.25. What incentive do they have to go sign up for a 7% interest rate? So there will be some people that have to move out of necessity, and we'll all be fighting for those clients. We have to move, but the people that would be the casual move-up buyers that don't have to move, we may see them pull back a bit because how much the cost of money is literally doubled.
Overnight, like that fast. It wasn't like we had time to adjust to it. It was like 3%, 5.5. What is it now? 5.25.
5 and 8 with 800 credit. And most people don't have 8. Most of my clients don't have 800.
Yeah, I don't know many people that do either. Like that literally happened.
We get a 6.8.
They bought a condo.
So here's the other thing, and this is what scares me. Not scares me, it's where the opportunity is for the few that are willing to do it. A lot of agents for the last 5 years, I hear about it all the time. Oh, my business is all sphere-based, all sphere-based, all sphere-based, all sphere-based, which is great. That's a different business though. Like that is an easier business than I have to go out and find business. When all of the news turns negative, those phone calls don't happen as much. And so then what is an agent going to rely on to generate their business? Now they have to go out and prospect, and they haven't had to do that. A lot of agents, not us, but a lot of agents haven't spent a whole lot of time doing that. So now you are forced to go out and find business, and it's a completely different skill set. And my concern is that a lot of agents have not grew up in an environment where you had to do that, and now you have to learn that new skill, and it's hard. It's different. I mean, it's. I heard the lady yell at you yesterday, like that sucks. Like, you, for you, for you it wasn't that bad, but it. I could hear her from like 2 doors down. She yelled so loud. Why the hell do you people keep calling me and like that? And you handled it well. Like, I'm sorry, like, you know, but like that ends most people's day. Like that's so once again, when the sentiment is negative, it's not like, oh, everybody's getting into real estate. Oh, it's a great time to buy a house. Oh, I can lock in a 3% interest rate. It's a different conversation now. So there's going to be fewer leads because it's not going to be like now's a great time to buy a house. Like that's not, we may say, oh, well, it's always a great time to buy a house. That's our internal speak is that way. But you watch the TV stations or on Facebook, you know, all the ads that are popping up now is like the housing bust or something like that because they want to have very, very graphic things to get you to click into it. The news, TikTok, like whatever, however people consume information, it's going to shift. And it'll go from like the world's great to the world's coming to a freaking end. You do not want to buy a house right now, and here are the reasons why. And we have to overcome that. So lead generation becomes very, very, very important. And first, it starts with our mind. We talked about this last time. Melissa, you asked me, like, how do you get out of this? It's just 90% of it's mental. By any means necessary. Like, are you willing to do whatever it takes to get to where you need to go? And it's that simple. Who cares if it's hard? The fact of the matter is, it's not going to make a difference. So I wish I had these numbers. I don't know the exact numbers, but something like in 2010, there were still about 4.2 million sales that happened in the course of a year. However, there were fewer agents. Now they're forecasting 4.5 million sales, but there's like 4.5 million real estate agents. So there's not as many transactions to go around. Now what will happen, when it gets hard, agents will get out of the business. Those that survive will gather more business and they'll be fine. And survive sounds really, really harsh. No, I think that's the truth. I think that's the truth.
I think for anybody who's been through 2007, 2011, survival is probably the proper word.
Yeah, it just sounds negative. I don't want to be negative. I think it's an opportunity for those. The strong survive. It's is that Darwin? Darwin's theory of evolution. Like, iron sharpens iron. And the people inside the market center you'll rely on. The reason we're doing this now is because to prepare, it may be fine. Maybe nothing happens. I mean, a shift is basically, it doesn't mean a market collapse or anything like that. It just means a shift in psychology, in consumer sentiment, and how people are thinking about things. And that's a shift. So, but as long as you're prepared for it, then you're fine. I think I said this last week. I think the last that I had heard was like there's like 2.5 million people in pre-licensing right now in the country. There's only 4.5 million sales, and we have all of us. Like I know a market center in Philadelphia right now has as many people in pre-licensing as they have in their market center because of K-score. So think about that. Like their agent count could double in the next 6 months. But the number of transactions are going to go down. So our job becomes going out and finding the transactions that are available, and that's where it comes back to just outworking everybody else and doing the things that other people are not willing to do. All right, this is funny. What's your current mindset on lead generation? Oh, they want you to write it down and share it with a group. Carmen, we know how you feel. You're just like, I'm ripping off the Band-Aid. Like, here's what I feel about it. Does anybody like it?
Aspects of it.
Sometimes.
Like open house lead gen is better than phone call lead gen.
I guess it just depends on how it goes for that day. Like how many interactions are and how many I get.
So how would you shift your mindset so that it's not hard?
Do something you like doing.
Do something you like doing. Play on Discord. I mean, that's the cool thing about lead generation. I think when people think of lead generation, they think of, oh my gosh, that's cold calling. Like there's so many different ways that you can lead generate. Like I could literally build a business off of playing on Discord. I mean, I know I could. Just talk to people all day long on Discord. I could do it on Twitter. I could host Twitter Spaces if I like to be vocal. I could do it on Facebook. Like I could build a whole entire business off of playing on Facebook. I'd go and find yard sale groups. I'd find any type of group that's out there on Facebook of things that interest me, and I would just start talking to people. Eric, you and I had this conversation years ago. You liked cars. And I was like, how many car groups are out there? Just go talk to people about cars, and as a natural byproduct, they're going to say, what do you do when you're not talking about cars? Oh, I just happen to sell real estate. Oh, okay. Yeah, exactly. Now, it requires consistency, and you still got to put in the work doing that. But no matter, somebody likes to cook, great. Then go to cooking things. Start a TikTok channel on cooking. Like it doesn't make a difference. It's just communicating with people. However you can do that consistently over time works. So you don't have to, and here's the other thing. Who says you have to like it? Now, in the perfect world, once again, I want to spend my day doing things that I love doing or things that make me a lot of money. Is everybody okay with that? If your day is spent either doing things that make you a lot of money or doing things that you enjoy, is there anybody who would say that sucks, I don't want to do that? Well, then just add a dollar value to lead generation, because you just said that I'm either going to do things that I enjoy or things that make me a lot of money. If lead generation makes you a lot of money, then just do that. But during a shifting market, you don't have to enjoy it. It's about survival. And to survive, we have to do things that sometimes we may not want to. Anybody seen those shows where you get stranded on an island and stuff like that, and you got to eat like bugs and stuff like that? Like, I probably wouldn't like eating beetles. But if I knew I had it to survive, damn sure I'd be eating some beetles.
I knew I had to lead gen, so I wouldn't have to eat beetles.
There you go. There you go. You assign a bigger pain to it, that's something that's more painful than lead generation. And trust me, and you can look it up because it's all public record, your house being in foreclosure, damn sure I'd rather lead generate than have those people call me every single day wondering if they're going to come and foreclose on my house.
Going back to a 9 to 5 when your time isn't your own.
Yep.
That's pain for me.
Yep. Now the good news about this shift is there'll be plenty of other jobs available. So you could always tap out and just get it. I mean, there's plenty of people that are looking to hire people right now. So this is important in watching this. So during a shift, one of the most important things is tracking. And being brutally honest with tracking income, tracking expenses, tracking your lead generation hours, tracking your goals. And more importantly, we talked about this last week, I think there's 2 numbers that you should be tracking at all times. And Eric put this very eloquently last week. What's your monthly nut? Everybody has most people have some number that if I don't make this amount of money, I'm out. So, which could be different, and for most people it is, than their monthly goals. So if my monthly expenses are $3,000 a month, my goal could be $10,000 a month. We do things for pleasure or pain. This brings pleasure, but what is more powerful, pleasure or avoiding pain? Pain. So the pain of not doing this for most people is a stronger motivator than, oh, well, if I can make $10,000 a month, woohoo, like that would be awesome. But not making the $3,000 a month is very, very painful. So when we're looking at numbers now for agents, we're tracking both of these things. Where are you in relation to your goals? And where is your pipeline in relation to your monthly needs? And then does anybody remember from last week the amount that you should have in your pipeline? No, your pipeline.
Oh.
6 times. 6 times your monthly expenses. So, and we broke, I'll share it with you again because I think this is, I think I made this up, so that's why I like it so much, because it was my idea. If you look at your forecasting, your pendings is cash flow that comes in typically, let's just say in 0 to 60 days. So you want 2x at a minimum that your monthly expenses and your pendings. Minimum 2x. That way if one falls apart, you're still okay. Now, your pipeline, which when most people think of the word pipeline, they think of all these potential people that I have that could transact business with me. And they overinflate this pipeline. Typically what I see for salespeople. Anybody that says, oh yeah, I had a great conversation with you, yep, they're in my pipeline. So we tend to overinflate things. Your pipeline, we're now equating to buyers that are pre-approved because my theory is when somebody has money, they typically want to spend it, especially if it's other people's money. or listing agreement signed. That now is our pipeline. And we want to have 6x this number because our pipeline, in theory, should be 60 to 120-day income. Oh, I'm sorry, 60 to 150, 3 months. 90, 120, yeah. 3 months. So, and you want to have 6x your monthly expenses. Does everybody understand how that's different than people? Then, beneath that, what some people call pipeline, we're now calling prospects. And then we can grade our prospects A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, gold, silver, bronze, however you want to do it. And the idea is that when we look at our day, we're first evaluating our pendings and making sure that they're buttoned up. Then we're touching base with the people that are in our pipeline to make sure that we don't lose them, because in a shifting market, every transaction becomes more and more meaningful. And then we're working through our prospects. And the idea is that this all funnels up to the top. So most people, if I were to say, evaluate your pipeline, and that's buyers pre-approved or listing agreement signed, and do you have 6x, most people would say, oh my, I don't. No, I don't. Most people, not everybody, but most people. But this is the painful number. Like that's the number that's the number that typically causes people to get out of the business or find another job or something like that. So we just call it the 3 Ps. Pendings, pipeline, prospects. And our day works in that order. Button up our pendings, touch our pipeline, and then work on our prospects. Any questions on that? And then you should be tracking this somewhere. Spreadsheet, however you want to do it. Somewhere you're tracking this. So here's all my pendings. Here's what's in my pipeline. You don't have to put the prospects in the tracking sheet, because these 2 numbers are really where your money's going to come from right away. And then how many hours daily do you have to lead generate? It's a trick question. However many it takes to get these people up to here. So the whole 3 hours of lead generation a day, no, that's out the window during a shifted market. You need to do that until you know that you have 6x in your pipeline. And then when your pipeline becomes really, really full, let's say you get to the point where this is 10, 12, 15x. But this is now falling apart. Now what do we need to spend our time on? We need to get these people off the fence to get them up to here. So if my pipeline is full by these definitions, but my pendings are not full, then I'm calling all those buyers and we're going out and showing houses today. Like, I'm finding you a house because I need to get something pending. And that's where it becomes to, are we willing to do whatever it takes? So if I have a buyer that's looking for a townhouse in Crofton between $3 and $375, and they're here, and I've got nothing up here, what am I now doing probably? I'm picking up the phone, or I'm going and door knocking that whole entire neighborhood to find them a house. I can't sit back and wait and hope that a house comes on the market. I'm going to take the destiny's got to, I got to take control of that situation. All right, this is important. When it comes to lead generation, especially during a shifting market, the conversations are different. The conversations, you're going to, and I think we're going to talk about this in the Business Booster tomorrow, actually. Is tomorrow Thursday?
Yep.
It is, okay. A lot of us have never had these conversations because unless you were in the business in 2007, 2008, 2009, what do you say to somebody when they ask you the question, is now a good time to buy because I'm hearing the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da? you better be prepared for that conversation. Oh, my parents told me, my friends told me, I read this article yesterday, my gardener told me, because everybody's a damn expert, like that now's not a good time to buy. And you better have a comeback very, very quick. Or a seller that says, well, my neighbor sold their house for $350 and you're now telling me that I need to price it at $345. And the other agent that I'm talking to is telling me it's $360. How are you overcoming that objection? Do you know the numbers well enough to be able to have the conversation? Or are you setting the seller up for here's what's happening in the market right now? You need to be prepared for, like in our net sheets, by the way, our net sheets have a column that has 1% towards, it's right there in the net sheet, 1% of the purchase price towards inspection-related issues. So they're seeing it right up front. Be prepared for up to 1% in the form of inspection-related. Anybody ever had a seller fall apart over like a $500 freaking repair? Like, really? Like, it's going to cost you $1,200 to carry that mortgage for another month. But we're setting expectations on the net sheet for 2% closing help. We may not have to get it, but we're setting that expectation right up front. Setting expectation that your house is not going to be sold in 7 days. Oh, crap. Thank you, Jeff. So there's different scripting that needs to be done. And you should find somebody in the room and role play that with. And we'll talk about some of them tomorrow at the Business Booster. Different types of financing options. ARMs are going to come back. Do you know what an ARM is? Like, can you explain what an adjustable rate mortgage is? Because once again, most people, what do you mean my mortgage can adjust? Like, how will I know what I'm going to pay? Like, what is the difference between a 5-1 ARM, a 7-1 ARM, a 10-1 ARM? Like, you're going to need to know these different types of things.
I think one of the other things that's important on financing options, especially now as rates go up, is finding lender partners that have extended locks. I just was contacted yesterday by a rep at Caruso, and one of their preferred lenders will actually do a 12-month lock for their client. So, because again, they've got sometimes development delays, they certainly have supply issue delays. So they're saying they'll lock you in for 12 months. Well, those are the products that we need to make sure our in-house lenders have and any of our lender partners to make sure that when a client says, well, I don't want to buy a house right now because my rates are going to be 7% or 9%, well, we've got programs that can lock you in right now. Wow. That may be the difference between them purchasing and them staying on the side.
Wow. I said this last week, and I tell my team this, like every day, finance.yahoo.com. Like you don't have to become an economist or go to business school necessarily, just do a quick high-level overview of finance.yahoo.com, because if other people are asking questions, well, I read that, and your response is, well, I have no idea what you're even talking about. So you need to be knowledgeable in some of these things in order to overcome objections that they may have. So once again, 15, 20 minutes every single morning, finance.yahoo.com.
John, what's ActiveRain.com?
So this is an old, I think ActiveRain still exists. I think so. It used to be a blog site. And then Ben Kinney actually bought it, sold it, and then bought it back. I don't know if it still exists.
It's like Facebook for real estate.
It still exists?
Yeah. It was like, it came, I think they created it before Facebook came out.
Yeah. Yeah, I had an ActiveRain profile. Like, I used to get profiles on it, and you could like write about real estate and stuff like that. So these slides are from 2007, so ActiveRain was kind of a big thing back then.
You're in here? Is it I sell houses? This I sell
Who's
houses?
your top 5?
Know your numbers. We talked about this last week. Like, this is what separates you when you're walking into a listing presentation from, here's why you use me because of my 14-point marketing plan. Now, once again, this is where a shift happens. When you're working with sphere of influence, how much of a presentation are you, saying that you don't give one, but how much of a presentation are we giving to our friend that's thinking about selling our house? And they call, hey, Adam, what's up, buddy? Haven't spoken to you in a while. Guess what? Me and the old lady getting divorced. I need to sell this house. Like, do you have to win that business? Like, are you, like most of the time? Yeah, it's like a come list me. Now, if you have to shift and you have to shift to some more prospecting, these are not people that already know you, like you, and trust you. It's a different conversation. You now have to do a listing presentation because they may be interviewing 2 people.
And it's also probably a good idea if they're going to compare their house to the one down the street that's on the market, if you have toured that house down the street on the market, so they know that you are an expert on all things in that neighborhood. And even if you just gain that expertise in the car for 15 minutes prior to you going in, if you're at least able to speak about all the homes that are currently on the market, say that you've been in some of them, and then anything that's coming soon, that'll give you a big head start.
Yep, know your numbers. And now what you'll find is that, and I said this last week, I'll tell you today, when you're thinking about a shifted market, you're trying to spend your time on people that find the motivated. Like, find the motivated people, find the motivated. Like, there are always people that need to buy a house, and there are people that need to sell a house. So there's 2 places that I will tell you, matter of factly, it never goes away. I don't care what kind of market it is. Divorces and estates. I don't care what market you're in. Divorces are going to happen. Matter of fact, during a shifted market, you'll see more divorces happen because if money gets tight, that's the #1 reason for divorce is financial things. So divorces and estates, probates. Matter of fact, probates will go up every year for the next 15 years because, unfortunately, baby boomers will be coming on their last days, some of them. So, and it's automatic. It's automatic. Doesn't make a difference what market it is. Read the book Shift. There's what's the Mortgage News Daily. Check that out every single day. Like, it'll keep you up to breast on what's happening in the mortgage market. And then use people inside. The biggest support that I had during the last shift was the other people in the office because we were all in it together. So there was a lot more sharing and a lot more mastermind that was happening back then because we were all kind of like, damn, like, I need you. When everything's going great, it's a little bit easier to like disattach. You'll see, watch this. When the market shifts, everybody wants training because they don't know what to do. So the demand for training will come back and everybody will want training again. Because whatever I've done the last 5 years doesn't work anymore. Clearly there's stuff that I don't know. Practice. Scripts and dialogues, I would find a role play partner. And once again, we're going to cover some of this tomorrow, but it's as simple as, here are the 10 objections that you're going to get from buyers. Here's the 10 objections you're going to get from sellers. Master something for those objections. Lead generation, we covered that. How much time do you need a lead to generate? You need a lead generate until your pipeline is satisfied. And there's no excuses. Oh, this is funny. So if you don't like to cold call strangers, start by calling people you know. If you spend all morning with email, then time blocked it later in the day. If you can't reach people in the morning, then touch them with a voicemail message. At the end of the day, it's do whatever it takes to make sure that your pipeline is full. Find the motivated. Don't spend time on tire kickers. Like, your time will become way more valuable. So it's like, do you need to buy a house, or are you just, I'm hoping to find a $100,000 house in Severna Park School District. Oh yeah, I'll keep looking for you.
We got you.
Or I love investors and I hate investors at the same time. Sorry, Austin, but you understand what I'm saying. Like, investors like, oh yeah, this all I've got to do is find them a house for 50 cents on the dollar and they'll work with me. You don't have time. So you'll hear about MOFRs, make offers for immediate response. Some of the easiest MOFRs that you can make is, what's the value of my house? It's by far the easiest MOFR that you can make. Zillow did that. That's why Zillow came up with this estimate. So that could just be you could literally build out a squeeze page and email it to your entire database. There's tools that are out there, listings to leads. It'll cost you like $15 a month. And it'll automatically send people a landing page to say what the value of their house is. It's a MOFR. Prospecting during a shifting market, like a lot of times it's like marketing. We all like to market, marketing, but during a shifting market, because we're trying to cut back on our budget typically, so typically you want to be prospecting based and then marketing enhanced. Sources of leads, wherever they come from. I mean, Facebook's the cheapest way, but it also requires work and effort that a lot of us don't want to put in, because those are the people, those Facebook leads don't work. But they're cheap, so you can get an abundance of people that you can have conversations with. Expired listings will come back because agents will overprice properties. Sellers' expectations will be, why did my house sell in 30 days? And you'll start to see more expired listings come back. Investors, although I don't know if it'll be any better for investors. Like during the last shift, it was great for investors because everything, values collapsed. I don't think we're going to see that this time. So I think
Based on other shifts, how long do you think it's going to take? Because I know consumer, their mindset, there's some lag time between what we see and what they see. How long do you think it's going to take for the consumer to realize that the market has changed and their house is not going to sell with 20 offers in 3 days?
That's a good question, Adam. I don't know. I mean, my guess, I'm just guessing 3 to 6 months before it's like, okay, this is the new norm, and then everything's just business as usual. But that's that painful period of that 3 to 6 month period where it's like, what's happening? People still think it's coming back. Like,
Still thinking about their neighbor's house.
yeah. I mean, like I was talking to Wendy this morning. Buyers that locked in at 3% 3 months ago, and now they're at 5%, shock. But a buyer that comes in today and they're pre-approved at 5 1/4, they're just like, oh, cool, 5 1/4 is 5 1/4. Now, if rates go to 7 or 8, they're in for the shock. But at some point in time, that's just about matter of setting expectations. So, hey, by the way, I know you're locked in at 5 1/4. What does it look like if rates go to 6 1/4? You can just set an expectation for that. Are they still qualified? And if the answer is no, they're not qualified, well, then now what do you have? You have a huge sense of urgency. We need to find a house like now because you're going to be priced out possibly another 30, 45 days. And that's the painful part for agents. When they think they have a solid pipeline and their pipeline just literally goes away. Builders, you may see builders come back and decide to pay us again. You may not, though. Who knows? Because there's still no inventory out there. The bottom line is just outwork everybody. Double down on lead generation, track your numbers. Come from a mindset of whatever it takes. Like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Know your numbers. And understand like how to have different conversations. And I don't want to say that it's harder, it's just a different conversation. And master that art of that conversation so when you get objections, you know how to handle the objections that you have. But if you just master the 3 Ps, so Austin, you weren't here, 3 Ps were pendings, pipeline, and prospects. If you just master that and you're always have 2x in my pendings and I have 6x in my pipeline, you have nothing to worry about. You are completely fine. Unless you decide to go out and make a major purchase in the middle of everything and it throws off your cash flow.
John, you said two times in your pipeline with pending and 6 times.
Yeah, but let me explain it to you again because this is something new that I just made up. But I made it up because I needed to know our numbers for the team.
Yeah.
So pendings typically are cash flow from, actually, let's say 0 to 60 days. Typically. Things could fall apart, obviously, which is why we want to have at a minimum 2x our monthly expenses.
Personally or from a team level?
So if it's a team, it's going to be 2x whatever the expenses are for the organization. If it's an individual, it's 2x my business expenses plus my personal expenses. Depending if they pay themselves a salary, like your pipeline, and where this came from, Austin, is I got so frustrated with my team because I couldn't figure out what money I had coming in beyond 60 days. And when you have $20,000 a month in salaries, like, if I can't count on anything here, then I just need to fire everybody. Literally, Jeff was in the meeting. I was like, if we can't figure this out, everybody's fired today. Because I can't wait 45 days and then say everybody's fired. So, and then what I realized is I started going through agents' pipeline, and what they were putting in their pipeline was like, oh, I had a great conversation with Betty Lunchbucket, and yeah, she's going to be selling her house one day. I'm like, I can't rationally base any income on that. So now we will not consider something to be pipeline unless it's a pre-approved buyer or it's a listing agreement that is signed. Not, yeah, I'm going to list with you, it's signed. And this should be about 60 to 120 day income. I'm sorry, 60 to 150. And then this should be 6x of whatever their monthly expenses are. And if an agent and then below this you have prospects. And then you can code your prospects however you want to code them. But this stuff right here should be, it's not guaranteed, but it's more guaranteed than I had a great conversation with this person and they want to buy a house in the next 90 days. Or they're hoping they can buy a house. And I found a lot of hopes when I started evaluating the pipeline. And I was like, no. I don't want. I can't rely on a hope. So, and then prospects. So there's 3 P's: pendings, pipelines, prospects. 2x here, 6x there. And if an agent always has this filled, then they shouldn't have any issues. And if they don't have it filled, then they need to lead generate until they get this filled. Does that help, Austin? You know, it's like other businesses, they have these things called accounts receivable. And I was trying to figure out, how do we do that in our business beyond what's just pending?
Right.
Because that's a scary thought. It's like, you really can't even operate a business that way. Like, I only can project cash flow for 60 days.
Right.
And then it could all turn off. So now we review that with the agents. And the other thing that we found was their pipeline. When we shifted to this way of thinking, all of a sudden their pipeline went shoop. The amount of income, because they were putting in all these. Oh, my friend said he's going to be buying a house this year. Well, your friend could change their mind.
Right.
When somebody's pre-approved, it's a lower likelihood that they're changing their mind.
Do you have a projection of the prospects too? Like what that should be?
Nope. No. Probably could reverse engineer that, but I want them to think, and I don't even care about that.
Yeah.
Like that could be whatever you want it to be. We want to track these 2 things because this is going to forecast whether or not you're going to make it in this business or not.